In the evening, I will try communicating with everybody. Okay, so welcome to today's class. Earlier in the class, we were able to look at project integration management, which is the main topic, and we understood from that discussion that project integration management is simply about the integration of all aspects of the project together. And when we mean all aspects of the project, we said that if you think of any project, all that revolves around the project in terms of cost, in terms of schedule, in terms of scope, in terms of quality, in terms of risk. So all the different pieces of the project, this is the aspect where the project manager sits and think of how to put them together. So that was what we discussed regarding project integration management. Then we said that there are some project management process to be able to achieve that. We said the first project management process is the project charter. We discussed extensively regarding what the project charter is. You can find that in the video also in case you missed the class. Then we also discussed about the project management plan. We said categorically there is no a particular document or a plan or a space that you can say, oh, this is a project management plan. But we said that and agreed that the project management plan technically is a combination, or you can use the main language, which is a subset of different plan. Or we can make it simpler by saying that the project management plan is actually made up of different plans. And we use the analogy of the Bible, that in the Bible you have different chapters or different books of the Bible. So those different books put together form the Bible. All right. If you have those different books separated, it is not referred to as the Bible. So it is when all those different books of the Bible are together, it becomes the Bible. So also in the case of the project management plan, when all the different plans on how you intend to take care of every aspect of the project are put together, it forms the project management plan. And we now said that the project management plan is the central document. Take note of that word, for managing all the plans in the project. And we also said that during the project charter, that is the only document that cannot be changed. And we said that if that document is changed, automatically we are creating a new project. But note, though the project management plan is an official document, it can be changed. So the only document that cannot be changed is the project charter. Every other project management document can be changed and adjusted. Hence, we need to look at the third process, which is direct and manage project work. Now, which means after we have created the project charter, we now use the project charter to create the project management plan, and the next process is direct and manage project work. What do we mean by direct and manage project work? This is an executing aspect of the project, just as it sounds, direct and manage project work. So which means in this case, please note, it is not the project manager that performs the physical work. Hello? Rather, it is the project team. But you being the project manager, your responsibility is to direct them. So which means direct and manage project work process is what you do as the project manager during the executing of the work to coordinate all the efforts of everyone or every project team members to accomplish the project result. All right, so that is what direct and manage project work. So which means in the direct and manage project work, the project manager's effort is towards leading, encouraging, coordinating, and ensuring that every aspect of the project we are able to achieve the desired result. So that becomes what? Direct and manage project work. Now, I've said two major things that I need you to take note of. This is the project manager's responsibility. He directs, he leads, he performs, he ensures, he coordinates. But the other thing I also said that is very important, who is responsible for carrying out the work? I also told you that it is not the project manager. Those two keywords are important. Now, what happens under this process? If it is not the project manager that carries out the physical work, then you can see what happens. Number one, the project team performs activities to complete the project objectives. So who does the work now? You can see in this statement, the set of people that does the work, we have mentioned it and you can see on the screen, is what? The project team. All right, so it is the project team responsibility to perform the activities or the work assigned to them, but the project managers is to direct or lead or perform, coordinate the activities of the team. Then we also have what also happened. Number two, deliverables are created, which means the end result is actually achieved. So that is that deliverables are created. What is deliverable? The unique result, that unique output that you want to achieve as a result of performing that task becomes very unique. So at this point, deliverables are created. What also happened? Number three, the project manager manage teams member. So when we say the project manager manage team member, he manage team member. Oh, maybe for instance, there are issues between team members. All right, there is a fight or a quarrel or argument, or maybe one person has one sophisticated knowledge than the other. What would the project manager do in this case? He tries his best by ensuring that he manage the project team member, because it is the project team member that is actually what? Performing the work. All right, so that is why he needs to manage them. So when we also say manage team member, excuse me sir, is there instances where a team member may not be doing right or the task assigned to them? Yes. So in such a case, when a team member is not doing that, it is the project manager's responsibility to manage that team member. And about also another thing again, it's possible we have team members that have um, wrong attitude towards work. It is the project manager's responsibility to manage such a team member. All right. There are some team members that are willing to work alone. They don't like working with people, even though they are in a team. What is the project manager's responsibility? Is to manage such team members. All right. Now, why is he managing them? So that they can be able to fulfill this number one, complete the project objectives. So if he's not managing them very well, this number one will suffer, which is to complete the project objectives. Why? Because they will not be coordinated together. What also happened in this direct and managed project work is the project manager at this time, that is when he gets the resources. He gets those resources he needs, which can be material, which can be equipment, which can even be human resources. He manages them and uses them very well. And also, there are also external resources like suppliers, all right, vendors. You can see in this case, because it is actually the executing aspect. We have seen instances where a team member is performing a task and the material he needs to fulfill that task is not available, or maybe the person that is supposed to supply the blocks, all right, the person that is supposed to supply the block is wasting time, and you are now asking the team member, have you completed that task? He now said, no, block has not arrived, or we are still expecting the cement, or we are still expecting this. So it is the responsibility of the project manager to manage the suppliers for the project. Why? Because the resources or whatever engagement have with the supplier will be used for executing. So the project management team will be using it for executing. So you can also see we manage stakeholders. When we say manage stakeholder in this case, it's going to be communicating every aspect of what is happening in the project to all the stakeholders. It's going to be providing reports. He's going to be getting information from the project. So he's going to manage all the stakeholders in the project. And remember, we defined who is a stakeholder. We said a stakeholder are those that will be impacted either positively or negatively by the project. So it is the responsibility of the project manager to do what? To manage those stakeholders, disseminate the right information to each of those stakeholders. Then what also happened, you can also see under that the project team will definitely follow the plan. Which plan are they referring to here now? All right. Which plan are they referring to here now? They are referring to the project management plan that has been created. So the project team follows the project management plan. All right. At this point, the unplanned activities are managed by the project manager. Please take note of this statement. Is it possible in a project that unplanned activity creeps in? Yes, it is possible in a project that unplanned activity creeps in. What do you mean by creep in? How? Why will it come in? Yes, we have seen a situation whereby the person that is supposed to follow the plan deviates from the plan. All right. Example, you ask somebody, oh, who is to carry out painting. All right. You give the person the exact texture of the paint, the quality, and everything that the person needs to do. Let's say in line of execution, you now discover that, oh, the texture is not as you wanted. So the person has deviated from the plan. So is it possible? Yes. There are several people, maybe because of their level of approach and knowledge, it is possible for them to deviate from the plan. So when they deviate, what are they not doing? It is technically that they are carrying out those unplanned activities. Unplanned activities. So take note, it is during execution that unplanned activity can creep in. And when they creep in, it is the project manager's responsibility to manage the unplanned activity. Okay, please take note of that. Then when another thing again I also need to mention for the purpose of exam is that when unplanned activity begins to creep in, it is now also the responsibility of the project manager to follow through the appropriate course of actions that should be taken. What do you mean, sir? What can be the actions that should be taken? Which means there are some decisions that can be made, or not that can, that will be made by the project manager so that he can restore the project back to its normal plan. Restore the project back to its normal plan. All right, please take note of that. So what also happened here, apart from all that we have said, you can see that work performance data is collected and communicated for appropriate actions. Okay, work performance data will be used as an input to different monitoring and control process. Later on, I will throw more light on what we refers to as work performance data. All right, are we good to go? Hello, can you see my screen? All right. Now, what is that appropriate course of action that the project manager needs to take when there is a deviation from the plan? Or maybe somebody who feel is technical, he has the sound knowledge and is not saying that let's not follow this plan, let's do it like this is shortcut, let's quickly do this. Or maybe the person compromise because he needed to get extra change in his pocket and he decided to quickly adjust the plan to suit his own pocket. There are three possible actions or decisions that the project managers would then take. All right, so take note of that. And those actions or decisions are what we have on the screen. We refer to it as what? Preventive actions, corrective actions, and defect repair. Now, I will take my time to explain them one by one, and I will need you to please pay attention. What do we mean by corrective action? Now, when we say corrective action, please take note, which means an error has occurred. Hello, which means an error has occurred, and that error has been detected either by the project manager or the team. Now, in the bid to make sure that that error or that discrepancy or that variation that has occurred at against the plan, what can the project manager do in this case? It takes a corrective action. Why is it taking a corrective action? Because it doesn't want that error to repeat in the nearest future or in subsequent projects or subsequent project work or subsequent project work. So take note, that then now show that it can take what? Corrective action. Now, what then is a corrective action? A corrective action technically is that action that is taken by the project manager after he has discovered that there is an error or there is a discrepancy from the plan or there is a variation from the plan to realign the project performance according to the work schedule. So all he will do to realign the project back, because take note now, the key word is that because he has discovered an error and it was him or the team member that discovered that error, then a corrective action has taken place. All right, take note of that. And in that case, that is very key. Okay, so maybe for instance in a task or in assignment or activity to be performed, you now discover, oh, you're supposed to use 6 inches block here. Why do you use 9 inches? Person audit can tell you that, sorry, I forgot. That is what. So what do you now do in that case? Because it was either you or the team member or the supervisor who are part of the team that discovered it, at that instant a corrective action is used. Then the next one is what? Preventive actions. Preventive action can occur when the project manager, hello, listen. Now, at this point, no error has been discovered, no discrepancy, no deviation from the plan. But the project manager just sat down and looked at the entire plan and perceived that there is possibility that an error can occur. Take note, an error has not occurred yet, but he just sit down and he is anticipating that a possibility that an error can occur. And if that occur, it can affect the performance of this project. So what he will do at that instant is what? Preventive action. Note, the error has not occurred, but he's anticipating, maybe from past experience, that maybe let's adjust this plan, or let's adjust this work activity to prevent also error from occurring. Or it could be that from past experience, there's a team member that he worked with who is part of the plan, and that team member during their work together, he almost caused a delay or a failure of a project activity assigned to him, and that same team member is in the project that is working on currently. Preventive action, he can say that, I don't want that error that that guy almost want the project to fail. Let me change him. Let me bring another person that can quickly do that work for me. I don't want anybody that will be sluggish in this particular project because of time. You are seeing what he has done is a preventive action, because he perceived from previous experience that that person could have caused a problem in the previous project, and he doesn't want that scenario to occur in this current project. So he did a preventive action by trying to remove that person. Or it could also be that a preventive action, now I'm giving you different angle to it. It could also be that there is a team member who is less experienced in a task that has been assigned, or maybe not less experienced, but you discover that somebody who is very experienced in a task that you have assigned to the person, and you also have in mind, or the person has informed you that he is looking for another job that can fetch him high pay in millions. He doesn't want those kind of job anymore. Then and is working on your current project. Preventive action will now be that you now get somebody else for him to start training, or the person went to training, you train somebody else to be able to take over that position in case the person gets a job eventually and your project will not come to a standstill. I don't know if you get that point. Hello, did you get that, Kennedy? All right, that becomes what? A prevent. You don't want the problem to occur, but you are perceiving, let me just do this because I don't want that problem to occur. That becomes what? A preventive action. Then the third one, action, which is defect repair. Another word for defect repair is refers to as rework. Another word for defect repair is refers to as what? Rework. All right. At this point, when do we notice defect repair? Defect repair comes in, it is now when the customer discover the error by itself. All right. So defect repair is now a situation that occur that it is now the customer, maybe during supervision, he now discovered the error. And because he was the one that discovered the error, because the error is not in line with the plan, so he's recommending you rework it, you do it all over again. That becomes a defect repair, which means a defect has been discovered by the customer and is asking you to repair that defect. All right. And I said that the other word for defect is simply what refers to as what? Rework. Okay, so a defect repair comes in when the product or the end result is not in conformance. It doesn't meet the specification requirement stated by the customer. And because it did not meet, you say, no, this is not what I asked you to do for me. No, 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 I can't accept this. And in that case, what will you do when a customer tell you that he can't accept it? You go and rework it again. That is what? Defect repair. BC, welcome to the class. Okay, so far we are talking about the executing aspect. So what do we want to achieve by directing and manage project work is to have our deliverables, which is the unique outcome. So which means at each task the team is to perform, they are going to have what? A unique outcome. Then we also refer to as work performance data, which become an information that the project manager will get from the project, how the work has been performed so far. Then remember we mentioned that during direct and managed project work, the project manager manages the team. So when I said manage, the other time I said that there is possibility that anything can arise, query, fight, conflict between the team. You can see the issue log will be created to register all the issues that will arise in the project regarding managing the team. Okay, so you can also see change request. You see that, like I said, every aspect can be changed. The deviation that occur, the project manager decides to use corrective action is a change. So which means either of the three actions that the project manager will decide to take, he must pass through the change request process. which refers to as a change integrated process. So which means the project manager, oh, he wants to carry out corrective action, he must pass through the perform change request process. He wants to carry out defect repair, he must pass through the perform change request process. Whatever process of whatever he wants to do, he must pass through those change process. Now let's look at what is um, defect repair. All right, so deliverables, we've said what deliverable is: unique outcome. All right, that you can say, oh, this is good. What is work performance data? Because I need to also explain that, because you may be coming across those words and I don't want it to look confusing. What is work performance data? Work performance data, as it sounds, are those raw observations that are collected about the work being done. All those raw observations that are collected about the work that is being done. Example, when a team member is reporting from the assigned work by a team member, he said, okay, for example, this activity or this task took 10 hours for us to complete, and we completed it on July 15. That is the actual raw performance, the actual raw information or data from the work being done. But it is possible that in the plan, we plan that work should be done in 7 hours. But the actual fact is that work performance data is not saying that the real data collected is that the time they actually completed the work is not 7 hours as according to plan, is what, 10 hours. Do you understand now? So work performance data are those raw information, those raw observations, those raw data that are collected, that the project manager gets to know about regarding the work being performed or the work being done. We refer to it as what? Work performance data. And this work performance data comes to the project manager maybe through the supervisor. All right, he can tell you that, okay, for example, the work completed today is so and so. Maybe, for instance, in the plan, you're supposed to complete 3 tasks, and the supervisor came to you as a project manager and said, Kennedy, and the work we're able to complete today is just these 2. We're sorry we did not start the other one on time. We will complete it tomorrow. So work performance data is not the raw information that you have gotten from the project. All right, which sometimes may be the same according to the plan, but sometimes it can be also different from the plan. That is what work performance data. Now, it is now this work performance data that the project manager use and look at and say, oh, from this information or data I've gotten from this project, it seems that we are going according to plan. Then he can also, from that work performance data, see that, well, from this information we have gotten from this project, we are not going according to plan at all. And since we are not going according to plan at all, maybe I should quickly make correction and take some necessary actions. That correction or necessary action, so that it can bring back or realign the project back online according to the plan, is those 3 actions we spoke about, which can either be a corrective action, a preventive action, or a defect repair actions. Okay, now what is work performance information? So there is difference between work performance data and work performance information. Work performance information is now when the project manager analyze the work performance data that he received from the team and confirm if it is in alignment with the project management plan. That analysis of comparing, analyzing, checking, tracking, that, okay, this work performance data that I have received, let me now compare it with the plans we have. Is it in alignment? Let me analyze it. What is the implication that we have this in alignment or we don't have it in alignment? It becomes work performance information. So that information is what he acts on. After he has done the analysis, he has done the comparison, he has analyzed to check if it is in conformance. That becomes what? Work performance information. Then, when the project manager gathers that information, put it in a report or put it in a document and send to some stakeholders, it becomes work performance report. Hello, did you get that analysis? Work performance data is gotten from the data, from the project, informations gotten from the project. Now, work performance information, the project manager analyzes those data he has gotten from the project and compare it with the plan and see if they are in alignment. So it now discovered that, oh, it is either they are in alignment or not in alignment. So what did they now do? It becomes an information. So that information, if you now compile it in a document and say, okay, let him send it to one of the stakeholders, let him send it to the MD, let him send it to who needs that information, it becomes work performance report. All right. So it is the work performance report that you get like a status update. When the sponsor, the owner of the project calls you and say, Alpha, what is going on? That information you pass or that report you give becomes work performance report. All right, which sometimes it can either be a status update or a progress update. It becomes work performance report. I hope that is clear. I hope that is clear. And Kennedy, is that clear? Shitu, is that clear? Okay. So now let's look at the fourth process, manage project knowledge. It is true that the organization you work with, you did not start the organization from the beginning with them. It is sometimes true that most of us in the organization we work, we are not the founding members. And sometimes, even if we are the founding members, there are some informations that have provided to us to work with. And that is what we refer to as the project knowledge. When we say a project knowledge, as the word sounds, they are knowledge that have been stored in the past, one, or gotten from a current project that you are working on. So it is the project manager's responsibility to manage project knowledge. Now, when we say manage project knowledge, as you can see on the screen, it is when the project manager tries to take advantage of the existing knowledge that exists in the organization and use that existing knowledge to work on a plan or on a current project to have success. So which means the project manager is managing the project knowledge. So which means when we talk about project knowledge, we can look at it from two perspectives, which means number one, the organization has a knowledge maybe from previous projects that they have done. All right. So the project manager takes advantage of those existing knowledge and benefit from it in order to plan for a current project. Example, if you are working in an organization that they have done construction before, a 3 bungalow construction that they have done, and now currently you are working and they assign you to a different 3 bungalow construction in a different location, and now you are cracking your brain on putting all the plans together, and somebody calls you and say, well, you don't need to do that, we did this 3 bungalow construction in our previous 3 years ago. The document is with the secretary or is with admin. Go and meet admin and collect that document. You can just review it and add to it due to current price, and that's all. What have you done? You are taking advantage of the project knowledge that exists in the organization. So which means it is either you are taking advantage of the existing knowledge or you are creating a new knowledge. That is what? Manage project knowledge. So you can see that it's in executing stage of your project that you can actually create new knowledge, like the work performance data we've talked about. The work performance data is a knowledge that you have gotten from the project that is being executed real time before you start comparing it with the plan. All right. So managed project knowledge is actually, it can be from existing knowledge in the past or a current project knowledge that you have collected as a result of work performance data. All right. So in this knowledge, we have two categories. We have the explicit knowledge and the tacit knowledge. Now, what do we mean by explicit knowledge? These are the knowledge that are simply fact-based. That means that you are trying to confuse us. What do you mean by fact-based? These are knowledge that is easy to communicate, either through words or through the use of picture or through the use of symbols. We call it explicit knowledge. The knowledge that is easy to communicate, the knowledge that is easy to share. So if, for instance, you have gotten a knowledge from a project you are working on, maybe from your team members, is sharing his experience, you see that because he can categorically state his experience and communicate that experience, either through words or picture, that knowledge is what? Explicit knowledge. Then tacit knowledge becomes the knowledge that maybe the team member find it difficult to share. He find it difficult to communicate it. He find it difficult to clearly express himself. Maybe because of his emotions. Oh, maybe because of his past experience. Or maybe because of his belief, his personal belief, or the background he came from, he's the type that doesn't like talking. Then when he needs to express himself, it's not clear. It becomes very ambiguous. Then in such case, we can say that that is a tacit knowledge, which means it is a knowledge that cannot be easily communicated. Not be easily communicated. Maybe because of his experience and because of the belief of the person and because of the emotions of the person. So that knowledge is finding it difficult to communicate. Now, take note. In such a case that you are working with a team member that find it difficult to communicate clearly, how do you get that person to still communicate? The only way to get such person is a project manager building trust. So trust is the key for the project manager to still being able to align with such a team member to still get verifiable facts. So which means the project manager must create a trust environment for such a team member. I've worked with a team member that anytime he or she I remember that guy, anytime he communicates, because his words is not so clear, he feels shy. And because he feels shy, it's difficult for him to quickly tell you what is the project status, what he has done. All right. And because of that nature, the other team members will definitely they will laugh and tease him. They start calling him names. So for you to be able to harness such information from such a team member is when you have built a level of trust that whatever he tells you, you will not take it, you will not use it to abuse him, you will not use it to laugh at him, you will not expose him. It is at that level such persons becomes very confident in expressing his or herself. All right. So manage knowledge. What do we want to achieve? Lesson learned register. What is a lesson learned register? Remember we said it earlier during when we were talking about we were explaining some aspect like the OPA, the organization process assets. All right. When we're talking about the OPA, we said that is divided into knowledge and history. Now, what is the lesson learned? I remember I said that lesson learned is like a post-mortem. And what did we mean by a post-mortem? Let's say, for instance, now we finish this class. And at the end of this class, and I say, oh, Kennedy, what is it that I did well? So Kennedy look at it and say, okay, yes, Williams, you did this right. Then I ask, okay, Kennedy, what is it that I did not do well? You tell me, maybe this and that and that. Then I ask you again, Kennedy, what is it that you think I can improve on, so that if I'm given the opportunity to teach again, you now say, okay, well, you can improve on this, improve on that, improve on that. You see, those three questions form what we refer to as what? Lesson learned. So for each team members that have been assigned activities, you are expected, hello, you, the project manager, you are expected to carry out a lesson learned, either according to the phase of the project or at the end of the project, for each task assigned to each team member. And what are the questions you are asking them? You can see that's three basic questions. They are referred to as what? Lesson learned. All right. So for each team member you are asking and they are giving you their answer, all those answers put together is what forms the lesson learned register. Do you get it? Is what form the lesson learned register. Are we together? Hello, should I go on? Okay, so let's move on. Hello, BC, are you there? So the next process we'll look at is monitor and control project work. Excuse me, who does monitoring? The project manager. And when we say monitoring of project work, we are simply saying that, and also take note, excuse me, when should monitoring and controlling of project work actually start? Is it only at the monitoring and control process in the project? No. Take note. Monitoring and control project work actually start from initiating throughout the closing of the project. So which means from the moment you are starting the discussion of the project, putting plans together, you're supposed to start monitoring so that nobody change the plan. So don't wait until the work has been done before you start doing your monitoring and control. So which means as a project manager who is proactive, your monitoring and control actually start from the moment you are having a discussion of creating the project charter. All right. So what then is monitoring and control? Just as you can see on the screen, monitoring and control is that process or project management process where the project manager, he continue to track, he continue to review, and he continue to report the progress of the project to meet the performance defined in the project management plan. So which means monitoring and control project work is when the project manager sits down and keep tracking or reviewing what has been done, what will be done in line with the project management plan. And why is he monitoring it? So that to avoid any form of deviation. One, to avoid any form of unplanned work. That is why he needs to monitor. And number three, to make sure that the project is moving in progress as planned. That is why monitoring and controlling is very, very important. All right. Now, let's now look at it. To control or to monitor, note it somewhere in your material, simply means to measure. To control or to monitor simply means to measure. So when we say monitoring and control project work, technically, that one is a big grammar. Let's look at the simplest illustration for it so that one can stick better. So when we say a project manager is supposed to do monitoring and controlling, what do we actually mean technically? Apart from all this big grammar of reviewing, tracking, checking this, what does it actually mean in real life? What it actually means is that the project manager compares the actual. What is the actual? What was actually done with what we plan to do and generate a report about the condition of the project. That is what monitoring and controlling. So if, for instance, what we actually plan to do and what we actually did, we now check the two. Are they in alignment? Is it what we plan to do that we actually did? Or is there a deviation? Who noticed the deviation? It is the project manager, it is not the team. So therefore, it is the project manager that calls the team to order. It is the project manager that reminds the team about the plan. It's the project manager that ensures that the team follows the plan. Hence, that is why the project manager is what? Monitoring. Hence, that is why the project manager is doing what? Is monitoring the progress of the project. Okay, so that is what we simply mean by monitoring and control. So you have to monitor. So what are we trying to achieve when we are monitoring and control? It is possible that in the process of monitoring and control there can be a deviation, and when there is deviation we can make changes. So change request is there. So which means you can say, Kule, that thing I asked you to do, you have not done it as we planned. Oh. You say, are you sure? Let me see. Oh, because he now saw that they've not done it as we planned, say, okay, let's change it. You will go and change it. That is what change request. Then you see that a report will be generated, which is what work performance report, as regarding the progress of the project. Now, you will notice that in this output, you have project management plan updates, project document updates. Excuse me, sir, what did they mean? Because there is a change request, it simply means that there are going to be some aspect of the project in the project management plan that will be updated because a change has taken place. So the document that actually got affected by that change will also be updated. You see that the project document that got affected will be updated, and the project management plan as a whole will also be what? Updated. That's why you can see these two in the option: project management plan update and project document update. Okay, so that is that. So that is what most likely we are going to see. So you can see the work performance report. All right, work performance report is that report that is sent either electronically or physically. Example, it can be status report, memo, justification, explanation, recommendation, update. All right, and who is this sent to? To the stakeholders. You see that the work performance report is sent to the stakeholders. And who is the stakeholder? It can be the organ, it can be every other part, every external stakeholder, either in the project or outside the project. Okay, so that is what work performance report. Now, the next thing we will discuss about is that in this, there is what we refer to as perform integrated change control. Now, I said earlier, please listen carefully. I said earlier that in our project as a whole, the only aspect of the project that cannot be changed is the project charter. And I also mentioned that the other aspect in the project, every other aspect can be changed. And I also said, for that changes to occur, there must be a process that it must pass through. And that process is what we refer to as what? Perform integrated change control. So every other changes that needs to be done in the project must pass through this process. So which means As a project manager, take note, you must create a change management plan, which means you are going to ask yourself, if for instance we need to carry out a change in this project, what are the process we should follow? Who should we report the change to? Who should be the persons, who should be part of the board that we should have to look at that change and carry out that change? So take note, change is possible in every project. In short, changes is inevitable. But take note, in such project, there is a systematic process that must be followed to carry out that change. So therefore, perform integrated change control is that process of reviewing all change requests, approving the change request, and ensuring that that change request is delivered. That is what perform integrated change control. So perform integrated change control, all change requests, approving changes, and managing changes to the deliverable. So this is the process where the project manager ensure that whatever change that needs to take place pass through the process. Excuse me, sir. Is there a body that is responsible for carrying out this change? Yes, sir. That body is what we refer to as what? Change Control Board. Hello? We refer to it as the CCB. So the CCB is the body responsible for making or sitting down, or like the committee that is put in place by the project manager to consider all form of changes in the project, and that becomes what? The Change Control Board. All right, so perform integrated change control, as we have defined, it focuses on identifying, documenting, approving, or rejecting changes. All right, so which means what happened in this perform change request or change control is that the project manager has put a control so that nobody in the project can easily just carry out any change without following a procedure. So which means it is technically wrong for a change to occur in your project without informing you, the project manager. And it's also technically wrong for you as a project manager not to involve your team or your sponsor or follow through the CCB. The CCB again simply means the Change Control Board. Now, for the purpose of exam, let me throw more light on the CCB. All right, take note, as I have said, the CCB, if you can note it down, the CCB, which is the Change Control Board, is responsible for reviewing and analyzing change requests in accordance with the change management plan for the project. So the CCB has the power to approve a change, and has the power to postpone a change, and has the power to reject a change. So it is the decision of the CCB to either approve a change request, disapprove, reject, or postpone a change request. Okay, now, excuse me, sir, are you trying to say that it is the project manager that will be the head of the CCB? No. The CCB, which is the Change Control Board, will be made up of different stakeholders. The project manager will be there, the customer will be there, the expert will be there, the functional managers will be there, other key stakeholders will be there. But automatically, the chairman or the head of the CCB will be the project sponsor. Remember, I told you earlier that the project sponsor for any project is the person providing the money. So anybody that is releasing the money to you to carry out a project becomes what? A project sponsor. So if a change is to occur, It is at the permission of the project sponsor to approve that particular changes. All right, so take note. The CCB is in control, and automatically they are the one that approve or reject a particular project changes. Okay, please take note of that. Why? Because now the question is, if the project manager is the head of the CCB, is going to compromise. He's going to do the project and quickly do things in his favor. And it's possible he may not carry others along, and the objective of the project will be what? Compromise. All right? Please take note of that. All right, okay? So that being said, all right, excuse me, sir. Can a change, please, this is an exam question. Can a change request be made verbally, or can a change request be initiated verbally? Take note. Yes, a change request can be initiated verbally, but it must be documented. And where will it be documented? The change request form. Excuse me, sir. Is it all change that the project manager should consider for a, okay, no, let me, is it everybody in the project or every stakeholders that can come to the project manager and say he wants to make change? Yes. Anybody in the project is allowed to make a change request. Anybody. Excuse me, sir. Is it everybody or is it all the change that anybody just bring that I should accept as a project manager? No. It is not all the change that you should accept as a project manager. Excuse me, sir. Why? Which kind of change should I not accept? Any change that is not in alignment with the project objectives. Remember, when we're talking about business case, the business document, any changes that is not in alignment with the business document or the original project objectives for that particular project should not be honored. Excuse me, sir, do I need to tell the person directly? No. Which means you cannot reject a change request. If, for instance, somebody in your team or somebody in the organization come to you and say, eh, this application is not doing this, is not doing that. All right. Can't you make this change and this change and this change? For example, you say, okay, yeah, I heard. All right, we'll look into it. Okay. Or the person send you an email considering a change request or a new request or additional features. You say, okay, no problem, sir. We will look into it. So it is technically wrong for you to tell the person directly and say, excuse me, sir, no, we can't accept that kind of change. We can't look into it. Why? Because it may affect you as a project manager. Do you understand that? But what do you do in such a case? You accept the change request. You document it down. But when you have documented it down, you must check if it is in alignment with the project objectives. If it is not in alignment, what do? You just leave it there and trash it. But you have noted it down, such change request, and you know that it's not in alignment, so you did not work on it. So which change do we now need to work on? Any change that is in alignment with the project objectives. Do you get that? Now, excuse me, sir. Now, let me go back to the case of the CCB. Is it true that as a project manager, I don't have the power to authorize any change? No. No. There are some change that the project manager has the power to authorize. And what are those changes? Take note. Any change that does not have direct impact on the project objectives, the project manager has the power. The project manager has the power to make and authorize such change. I repeat. So any part of the project changes, all right, that does not have direct impact, that does not have impact on other constraints, that is the aspect the project manager has power to control or to change without going to the CCB board. Hello, did you get that? Excuse me, sir, what do you mean by not having impact? If, for instance, there is going to be a change in scope, let's say it's somebody in your team or maybe an outsider or a sponsor or somebody just came and said, you know what, Kennedy, I want you to add these additional features to this project. Okay, you now look at it, you documented it down, you noted it, and now you check the implication and impact of that change. If it is going to affect other constraints. What is a constraint, first and foremost? A constraint in a project can be anything that prevents or limits the project manager for achieving success. Anything that can prevent the project manager or limits the project manager from achieving success becomes a constraint. So in this case, they are telling you to make adjustment to scope of work, adding additional features. Now you now check, okay, this additional feature, let me check the impact it will have with cost. Will it make my cost to change? You check. Okay. You check the impact of that additional features. Will it increase my schedule for delivering the project? You check. No. You check the additional features that they ask you to put. Will it affect the entire quality of the project? You check. You check that additional features. Will it increase the resources that I have on this project? You check. So now, by the time you check and you now discover that it does not have impact on other constraints, then the project manager has the power to authorize a change request. Only when it does not have impact. But if it does have impact, automatically the project manager may not have the power to authorize that change. So in that case, what will he do? He would take that change to the change request board. So it is now the CCB board that will look at it and authorize that change. Okay, so all that I have said, you can see them in this illustration. Okay, this illustration is a capture of all I have said. So I'm just trying to align it so that you can see everything well. All right, so on the screen, all the things I have said regarding changes, you can see it. Step in change request approval. All right, so you can see the customer at this point is issuing a change request to who? You can see the project manager. So what would the project manager do first when a change request form is sent or somebody called and said, I want you to change a request? All right, like for instance now, BC, when Aaron Masole will say, oh, I want you to change Naira point this and that. What, BC, are you there? Hello, BC, are you with me? All right, so for such a changes because of maybe an update to the application, what is the project manager supposed to do first? What is it supposed to do? You can say the change request should be documented and identified by the project manager. So when that change request is sent to the project manager, or the project manager, what will he do? He documents it. Now, that document where the project manager documents it is what we refer to as change log or change request log. Is what we refer to as change log or change request log. Okay, so you cannot see the former, you cannot see that properly documented in this paper. So the former change request created. Now, because the project manager has documented it, you can see it on this paper, is not in the change log. What should be done first, or what follows after it has been documented is that, take note, this is our exam questions. You can't, this place you have like 5-10 questions from exam. What would the project manager do when it has been documented? Next is that the project manager will what? Assess. Now, this change request that they sent is what? Change scope. Now, what would the project manager do after it has documented the change request? Is to assess and find out the impact. So you can see all the stakeholder and his team member, and the project manager and his team member. He gather all of them and say, okay, Eromosele has issued a change request. Let's change this and that. You can see, for instance, the team member. You see, this T represents time. This C represents cost. This S represents scope. But what needs to be changed is the scope. So you can see the team now sitting down with the project manager and they are discussing. What are they discussing? They are trying to find out the impact of the change. So the project manager and his team sit down to calculate, okay, that scope of work that has been requested for us to change. So that scope of work that they request that we should change, now, what is the impact? What is the impact of that change? So the project manager and his team will confirm the impact or calculate the impact of that change against cost to check if cost will increase. We calculate the impact of that change to see if it will increase the time they will complete the project. It will calculate the impact on that change to see if it will increase or bring risk to the project. They will calculate the impact of that change to see if it will expose the system to more risk and all that. Do you get it now? So if at this point the project manager discover that it will have no impact, then the project manager has the right to say, okay, my team, execute. But if at this point the project manager now discover that, well, it has impact, or it will increase cost by 5 million. This little change now, we have to go and get license for it. It will increase the cost by 5 million. Are you saying the project manager and his team will bring the money, that 5 million? No, which means it will increase cost. And they check, it will make the time for this project, instead of 6 weeks, it will make it 8 weeks. What are we now going to tell the owner of the project? So at that point, the project manager gather that information now of that impact that they have calculated. It takes the change request, you can see, with the impact that they have calculated, and take it to the CCB. Remember, the project manager is a member of the CCB, but is not the head. So everybody in the CCB, the people in charge of the project, the ogas, will now sit down and look at that impact and also consider if they should accept the change or reject the change. Why? That will be their decision based on the impact. So if they don't have money to implement it, what will they do? They will change it now. And if they have money, they'll say, okay, since we have money, go ahead, we'll provide you the money. So the guys, the top ogas will now sit down and they can either approve the change request, you can see, and say, okay, go ahead, project manager, approve, we'll provide you the extra money. And we extend the project to extra 3 weeks. Or they reject because they don't have the money or they don't have the time. So these two things can happen. And when this happens, you must go back to that change log and document it and update it and say, that change request, so that customer brought, this is the decision. So the team will now look at the change log and go and adjust their plan to execute. So the project manager will now notify everybody in the team and other stakeholders that, okay, there has been a change, we want you to execute that change. So you can see, continue to work on the new plan. So which means the project management plan will be updated because of that change, and the project document also will be updated because of that change. Yes, please ask me question. Yes, Kennedy, ask me question. BC, ask me question. Joseph, if you are still available, ask me question. Is it clear? Hello, Kennedy, you're trying to say something, we can't hear you. All right. BC, what about you? Is it clear? Joseph, what about you? Is it clear? Okay, so let's look at close project or phase. All right. So at this point, we are not saying that, oh, the work has been completed. And since the work has been completed, let them now close the project. So close project or phase is when the physical work has been completed and every other things that needs to be done has been completed. So closing project or phase, which means you can decide that in your project you are going to be closing phase by phase. All right. While also you can decide to say, okay, I'm going to close the project once we are done with all the work. So it now depends on you, the project manager. Okay, so closing project is going to be either as a total project or by phase. Now, so when do we close a project? Take note, this question is often asked in the exam. Is it when all the technical work in a project has been completed before we close a project? Take note, closing a project is not only when all the technical work has been completed. So in short, you may have completed all the technical work, all the programming, all the integration, and everything is working. Is still you may still not be able to close the project. So closing a project is not only when the technical work has been completed. Take note of that. All right. So closing a project is the formal, it involves getting a final formal acceptance of the project or phase as a whole from the customer. That is what closing a project. So closing a project is now when the customer now finally sent you a formal acceptance. Hello, is it the customer now, not you? So who closed the project? It is when the customer send you a feedback and said, yes, BC, that project, we can now formally close the project. Hence, that is when the project can be closed. So closing a project is a formal ending of the project work and let everybody who has participated in the project and say, oh, thank you, this project is finally done, we have completed it, everything is okay, and bye bye. Then we can say that we can close the project. Take note, as I said earlier, it is not only when the technical work alone has been completed in a project. All right. So what other things apart from the technical work? Example, completion of payment. Completion of payment is very important. All right. Completion of report and completion of the lesson learned documentation, archiving of those reports, and receiving a final sign-off feedback from the customer. If the customer did not reply you a final feedback of completion, then you can't close the project. So it is possible that you have finished a project and 2 weeks later the customer call you and tell you that this function is not working again. What happened? Do you get it now? So you can't say that technically we have finished the project, let's close, until every aspect of the project, which includes confirmation of the requirement of the work done, getting final acceptance, paying off all your suppliers, paying every payment for the project, getting a feedback of completion from the customer, and archiving all your reports, doing your lesson learned documentation, and all that needs to be done. So closing phase of a project is that phase when the project manager, they have finished their technical work and they are now transferring the final product to the customer. And when that is done, it is subject for review by the customer. That is why we say it is the customer that will now send feedback that yes, we have accepted that this project is okay, and we finally close it. For instance, In a construction project, 3-bedroom flat, and you are building about 10 units. Maybe your office want to provide for esteemed staff. 3-bedroom flat, 10 units in a particular location. Now you have completed the project. So closing of that project will now be when, number one, all the technical work of the project has been completed, and because that has been completed, all the monies that needs to be paid, all the financial transactions have been completed, and now there's a final transfer of the final product now to the owner or to the organization. Say, oh, we have completed this project, you can have access to it. And they now have access to it and write you back or give you a feedback of saying that, well done, we are impressed, we are satisfied, and that will close the project. That is only when a project can be closed. Take note. If you are not finished payment of salaries or materials, you can't close a project. If you don't get that feedback from the customer, you can't close a project. So don't think that it is when the physical work that people can see, oh, this building is very fine. Nothing, everything, they fix AC, they've done this. What about if the AC, they've not paid for it? What about they've not completed the tiling money for the owner they supply from? You understand? Take note. All right. So that is only when a project can be closed. And as I also said, when the project team has completed all that needs to be done. So what do we want to achieve by closing a project? You can see this keyword, final product or service or result transition to the final customer. And you can now see a final report from the customer to the project manager. And you can also see that OPA, all those lessons learned, all those information from the project, knowledge from the project are stored in the organization for reference for future project. That is only when you can close a project. There are some organizations, they also have closing ceremony. So you can look at all this administrative procedure. Some organizations have closing ceremony. Okay, so you see some organization, they do closing ceremony, they do closing party, especially some big projects. All right, they do this project we're able to finish, and they do a closing ceremony, all right, to mark the final closure of the project. And before that ceremony take place, all these other things may have been done. Transfer of the final product to the final customer. The customer look at it and is okay. He give you feedback. All the money has been paid. All the report has been generated. All these people you are transacting with, they are happy with you, and you can now close. So you can close with a party, and that is all. Okay. Excuse me, sir. For the purpose, all these are administrative. Now, for the purpose of exam, at what point can we close a project? At what point can we close a project? Which means, I rephrase that question. Excuse me, sir. Is it only when the project is successful we can close a project? Take note, no. A project can be closed either due to successful completion of the project or due to termination decision of the project. Either due to successful or termination decision. Excuse me, sir, what do you mean? What do you mean by termination decision? So we can say that technically, for the purpose of exam and in real life project, a project can be closed when, oh, we have finished everything. We have done all that we need to do. The project is successful. We can close a project, which I've explained earlier. But apart from the successful completion, there also another reason, which can be as a result of termination decision. Excuse me, sir, what are the possible cases that can bring about termination decision? Number one, when there is a legal action, it can bring about closure of a project. Oh, a legal action came and said, we can't continue with that project. There's nothing you can do as a project manager. It's not your fight. it can bring about closure of a project. Number two, termination decision. When the project organization no longer wants the project, which means it is not, which is what refers to as closing a project for convenience. For convenience, because they no longer want it. Example, we did a project some time ago with um, Stanbic IBTC Bank. All right. And now the sponsor for that project was their director, a particular director who is in charge of um, pensions. Okay. So midway the project, we never knew that the reason why the project sponsor, that director, was pushing, was doing all he can to make sure the project is completed, was because he knows that he may soon be um, his tenure will soon be over, which means retirement has set in. So while we are in the middle of the project, he received his retirement letter. Automatically, he cannot continue with the project. So which means we now have a new project sponsor. When we approach the new project sponsor to brief him on the status of the project and the progress so far, what he just said is that, excuse me, I don't think I am in support of that project. It is not with my current vision. Hence, the need for you to truncate the project. All of us, we're just looking at ourselves. There's nothing we can do. Why? Because of convenience. So, when we say termination decision by convenience, we are simply saying that because the organization no longer wants that project again, say, don't worry, leave it. And that is exactly what is happening in our government sector. You see somebody, a particular administration start a project, and the new administration come and say, what kind of nonsense project? I don't want it. He will not do it. He abandon it because he will not release money for the next, for the people to continue and complete the project. That is what this. Then another one again is when there is no finance. Termination decision can come as a result of the organization no longer having money to fund the project. Hence, the project manager will not bring his own money and say, okay, don't worry, sir. I have some money that I have not used. Let me use it to complete the project. You pay me back. All right. So all these are reasons that can bring about termination decision. So project can be closed either due to these reasons or a successful completion of the project. All right. Do we get that? Okay. So thank you for today's class.